about the writing process. Remember, we don't just write a story really quick and we're done, are we? So I said there is a writing process. The first thing we do is called what? Pre-writing. This is when we think about it. And we started to do that the other day. Remember, we started on Friday with our story planner, doing the beginning, middle, and end. Here's my story planner. Okay, so very first thing we do is pre-write. We draw, we think, we use our fingers, we write lists, we just decide what's going to happen in our story. Then after we do pre-writing, the next step is drafting. So what do you think we're going to start today? Drafting. We did our pre-writing already. Some of you aren't finished, and that's okay. Most of you are. So today we're going to start writing our story, and I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to write sentences that have to do with what we put on our beginning, middle, and end. And then when you're drafting, you don't need to worry about it being really pretty. You just need to use your plan to write and spell as best as you can and just get it all out on the paper. That's what you're doing. You're just getting all your words out on the paper. So you're stopping and thinking, okay, what's going to happen next? And then you write it. Then you stop and think, what's going to happen next? And then you write it. And then at the end, we'll write it nice and neat after we go through and add and make changes. So today we're going to go in the drafting. So we are in the second phase. The first one's pre-writing. The second one is drafting. So now we're going to learn how to do that. So drafting is when you start to write your paper. So all of you did a story or started a story planner. And I told you this time you can do whatever you want. It can be a story about something that happened to you, or it can be a made-up story. You got to decide. Made-up story or something that happened to you. Chase, put on your mask. Thank you. So I said on my beginning of my story, it was my first time to scuba dive. And then in the middle of my story, we got out to the water and put on our gear. And then the end of the story, I went under and saw sea turtles. Okay, this is my story that I'm going to write that I did. This is a real story that happened to me. So whenever I say, okay, it's time to start your drafting phase, you're going to come over here and get a piece of drafting book. You've seen this before, right? It has 3 pages. Some of you might write more than 3 pages, and I have some extra pages if you need to add more to the end. But most of us are going to only do about 1 or 2 pages right now. But we're going to add things, remember, to make it longer. So here's what I do. You should not be touching a pencil or playing with anything right now. You should be watching. That's all you should be doing. So I want to start writing. Now, my only sentence in the beginning is not, it was my first time to scuba dive. I am going to make a longer story. I'm just not going to write this, this, and that, and that's my story. That's kind of boring, right? Where did I scuba dive? What kind of day was it? Who was I with? What was I on? Was I on a boat? Or was I just going off the shore? Was I excited or scared? Who was with me? Those are all things I can write about in my story. So here I'm going to start my beginning today. Just going to start my beginning. So I put my name. And I put the date that I started my story, 9/14/20. All right. I'm going to say, it was my first time to scuba dive. I was a little scared, but also a little excited. Okay, I wanted to see a shark or a sea turtle or a shipwreck. Okay, those are the things I wanted to see when I was going scuba diving. Now, I didn't say, well, okay, it was my first time to scuba dive. I was a little scared, but also a little excited. I wanted to add how I felt, right? That's always a good thing to put in your paper, is how you feel. And I wanted to, I'm telling what I wanted to see. I wanted to see a shark or a turtle or a shipwreck. Okay, I just noticed when I went through here and I reread it, I want it to a shark. That doesn't make sense, does it? I want it to, look, I put a carrot in there when I missed a word. You see that carrot? Put your hands down, please. This is my story.
Oh, yeah.
I want it, see that carrot I did right there? Because I forgot a word. I want it to see a shark, not I want it to a shark. That didn't make sense. I want it to see a shark. See, that's why we reread our stories. So it was my first time scuba dive. I was a little scared, but also a little excited. I wanted to see a shark or a sea turtle or a shipwreck. Let's see. I climbed into a boat that was going to take us there. It was my husband and our friend Eric. Okay, Eric was my teacher. Eric was my teacher. Okay, now, this is my whole beginning of my story. That's just this part. Did I write more than I put here?
Yeah.
Yes, this is just to remind me. So then I've got to think, what happened at the beginning of my story? How did I feel? What did it look like? Who was I with? What was I on? Where was I at? So I added all those things to my story. Now I'm not going to do the middle and end today. I'm just going to do the beginning. So I'm going to read it. It was my first time to scuba dive. I was a little scared, but also a little excited. I wanted to see a shark or a sea turtle or a shipwreck. I climbed into a boat that was going to take us there. It was my husband and our friend Eric. Eric was my teacher. So that is just my beginning of my story. That's it. So now I want you to get out your story planner. So get out your purple folder, and your story planner should be in there. It may not be finished. That's okay. Most of you should have already at least finished your beginning.
What about our other story?
We'll talk about that a little bit later. Right now we're working on this story.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have your story planner out, and you have your beginning, middle, and end. Look at it again for a minute or two. Okay, just look at your beginning, just the top one. What did you write or draw there? Think about it. Okay, now, I want you to think about 2 more things you can add to that beginning. Remember, I added that I was scared and excited and what I wanted to see and when I climbed into a boat and who I was with. So I added 4 more things to my beginning. I just want you to think of 2 more things that are more. You're not drawing them. This is for when you write your story. So think in your brain. What are 2 more things you can tell me about at the beginning? You don't need to know. You don't write it on the planner because you're going to write it in your story. Just think about it in your brain. What is at least 2 more things you could say in the beginning of your story before you get to the middle part? Okay, now, I want you to turn to the same partner you just used for your drawing a while ago. And I want you to tell them what your beginning of your story is. Take turns. Don't start yet. Waterfall, waterfall. Now, Kinsler and Chase are partners. So whenever Chase is telling Kinsler about the beginning of his story, remember at least 3 things have to happen at the beginning of your story. You're not going to the middle yet. You're just telling them the beginning. Not the whole story, just the beginning. So when Chase tells Kinsler, Kinsler's going to be very quiet and respectful and listen to all of Chase. He's not going to interrupt him, is he? No, we do not interrupt our partner because I'm not going to give you a long time to do this. So this isn't to talk about your stories. This is just to tell them the beginning of your story. Then when Chase is done telling Kinsler the beginning of his story and all the things, at least 3 things that happened in the beginning, then Kinsler is going to tell Chase the 3 things that happened at the beginning of his story. If you need to put 3 fingers up, you can to help you. This happened, this happened, this happened. Only in the beginning, not the middle yet. Just the beginning of your story. Go ahead and talk to your partner. Okay, now you're going to get your storybook and start writing just the beginning of your story. So just write the next 5 to 10 minutes on what happened at the beginning of your story. At least 2 extra things that were not on your story planner.